Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Alhamdulillah wahda wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the second session of Monday Night Boost, going through Lesser of Two Evils. Very quickly, let's just cover what we, just go over what we covered last week, inshallah, last Monday. And among the basic principles of Sharia that we went through, where the scholars are agreed, is that cases of darura, necessity, make forbidden things permissible. Things that are generally forbidden, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed them to become permissible under special circumstances. And there's a great deal of evidence. We covered a lot of that evidence last week, supported by the Quran and the Sunnah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But of the ayahs, the main ayah that covers it, a majority of the ulama use, is the ayah in Ma'idah, the 5th surah of the Quran, 3rd verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, forbidden to you are mayta, the dead meat, the dead animals, the cattle, the beasts that weren't slaughtered. Blood is haram. The flesh and blood of swine is haram. And that on which Allah's name has not been mentioned while slaughtering. That which has been slaughtered as a sacrifice for others than Allah, or has been slaughtered for idols, and that still takes place today, so we have to be very careful where we get our meat from. And that which has been killed by strangling, or by a violent blow, or by a headlong fall, or by the goring of horns, and that which has been partly eaten by a wild animal, unless you're able to slaughter it before it dies, then that becomes allowable, otherwise it's forbidden. And that which is sacrificed on the nusub, the stone altars. And back in the days when they used to have altars and they used to worship idols or whatever else they are worshiping, they would slaughter the animals on those instances and in those areas. That would be something that is forbidden. Forbidden also is the use of arrows seeking luck or decision. All that is disobedient to Allah and sin. Excuse me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sums up this ayah. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. And this day, those who have disbelieved have given up all hope of their religion. So fear them not, but fear me. This day I have perfected your religion for you, completed my favor upon you, and have chosen for you Islam as your religion. But as for him who is forced by severe hunger with or inclination to sin, such can eat these above mentioned meats, then surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is often forgiving and most merciful. So this is the main ayah that the entire crux of darura, necessity, sits on. So there are questions that were asked last week and we weren't able to get to all of those questions. I've written down some of these questions. So one of the questions was, is darura only available in emergency? I ask you, is darura only permissible during emergencies? So it has to be a life and death situation? Yes or no? Yes, has to be a life or death. If it's not life or death, you cannot. So remember, we were checking about politics. That's a life and death situation. So it does not have to be life and death. It does not have to be life and death. When we're talking about two evils, the majority of the times, it is going to have to do with something with life and death. For example, you're extremely hungry and there's nothing around. You're in the middle of the desert, you're in the middle of the mountains, you're in the middle of the forest, and you don't know what to eat from the forest, you don't know what's going to kill you, what's not going to kill you, and the only thing that you see is something that is haram, a dead animal that's sitting there, and you decide to take a piece of it. So you take a piece of it, you eat it, but you don't eat it to your fill, you eat it just to have enough energy to continue moving forward, to get out of the forest, to get out of the desert, whatever it may be. That is something that is permissible based on necessity. That is a life and death situation. But when we have situations where politics, we said, was one, another field that you can go to is medicine, right? Medicine. There's medications that you may need, extremely need. I was reading on one of the fatwas given by the Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala. It was related to a medication that has some type of antidepressant within it. So it may have other types of drugs, other types of things that make you either lose your senses or become like in a comatose state, like maybe not comatose, but like it makes you into a state where you're almost like a zombie. You really can't think for yourself. So now the scholars of Islam have said, number one, if this is made from something that is halal, the medication is made from something halal and is for a halal purpose, then no problem. But if, let's say there's medication made from meats that we're 99.9% sure they're not halal meats, or they're using pork or other types of substances to make this medication, generally speaking, this would be haram. Generally speaking, this would be haram. But, the scholars of Islam have also said, if this is the only medication that is available, only medication around that is made from something that is not halal, that is from a haram animal, that may not have been sacrificed in a proper manner, or that from dead meat or whatever, if this is the only thing that's allowable, then you are able to take that medication. Then you're able to take that medication only till the use period. Meaning if you need it for a few days, those few days only. If you need it for a week or 2 weeks, that's it. But then khalas, you leave it alone. If there is no other option. Remember, the condition is that there has to be a need, an absolute need. Right? In this situation, it might not be life or death, but you have extreme pain. You know, that you want to get rid of your pain. One of the questions that majority of the ummah now asks is about using weed, but controlled substance, right? Taking out the effect of that of marijuana for medicinal purposes, right? For medicine purposes, they ask a lot about, can I use marijuana for medicinal purposes? Now again, if there is no alternate, there's no other thing that you can use, then inshallah, that's something that you could use. But again, you want to make sure that there's no side effects, there's no other harm that comes from it. If the harm is greater, then this is something that we want to stay away from, inshallah. Any questions on that? Any questions? No? Okay, another question was related to the difference between darura and hajat. Hajat is something that is, it's a need or a want. Darura comes into a situation where it has conditions. There's a necessity based on a need, right? A need or a hajat can be just any particular need or a want. A person has the need to go and relieve themselves. A person has a need and to go and just eat. So just on a regular basis. That would be the main difference, inshallah. Allah ta'ala alam. Then some questions were about a little bit off the topic, but I have no problems answering these questions. One question was, what is the ruling on having more than one car in a household? What is the ruling? Halal or haram? Can you have more than one car? Anybody who has more than one car are haram, right? Yeah. No, you can have more than one car, inshallah. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5 cars as the need arises. As the need arises. But the question was related to something that is connected to something that can be considered haram. For example, every time we have a car, what do you need to have with it? Registration and? Insurance. So when you have insurance with it, now starting to rethink that question. Is it halal to consistently in the Western world, whether in the US, UK, wherever you have a car, you must also get insurance, car insurance. Now what do you think? Halal or haram? More than one car? Still halal? Huh? Anybody else? Any other opinion? Haram. Say it again.
It's haram unless you have a need for that particular
So the brother said it may be considered haram if there's no extra need for it. Now we're getting into excessiveness. So what if you have a garage full of cars, right? Some of these big comedians and sports stars and politicians and rich people have hundreds of cars, right? Sometimes different types of cars all in their garage. So that's a whole different topic. So the scholars of Islam have had different conferences across the world. In the 90s, in the 2000s, and now here in this decade as well, between 2000 and 2010 and 2019 as well. I don't know the exact dates. And they have discussed all of these options, right? So insurance in general, generally speaking, insurance is something you want to kind of stay away from. But there's conditions. And when they review these conditions, what are those conditions? Number one, they won't let you drive a car unless you have car insurance. So when you buy a car, one of the first things you need to do before you can pull the car onto the road is you need to have insurance. You need to have insurance. So then the scholar said, so if this is a requirement to be able to drive in the Western world, in the United States, then inshallah it should be okay for them to have that insurance. So then they went deeper into this topic as well. So the depths of the topic basically went into how much insurance is enough insurance, right? Should you get the absolutely full exclusive insurance where anything happened and you pay the highest premiums and whatever? They said no. Whatever the common means would be in order for you to, for example, if there was an accident to take place, where you can replace the car as well as any damage that was caused. So now you see, I think if you go to Geico or State Farm, they tell you that the state requirement is, I forget, like $500,000 or something right there, right? Or $1 million policy. So, or if you get the umbrella policy in line with your house, they give you a break on the premium, and so it gives you larger coverages. And what's that for? That's for the harm that takes place. And because there's a need for that insurance to take place in the beginning, there's a need, because without that car insurance, you won't be able to drive. So if you're not able to drive without that, so you must get it. So they said this is okay. And then in terms of getting the insurance policy, you try to get the policy that is going to be meaningful to you, and it's not going to be over excessive. And that's something that you would have to kind of figure out on your, based on state requirements, based on where you live. So here in the city, it's more congested. There are more accidents take place here, as opposed to you live further away in the suburbs somewhere. There's less car accidents because there's less a car on the road. So you have to take that into consideration, inshallah. I wanted to bring up a point to you. There's a masjid that I know was, nobody burnt it down. It burnt down based on an accident. So the masjid had some type of liability insurance on their building. So the masjid, in the AC air conditioning unit, the HVAC unit, overnight it caught fire. And as the brothers and sisters were praying Fajr in the masjid, the building went into flames and they all exited the building. Alhamdulillah, nobody got hurt, but the building went down. It's been 5+ years and they still haven't been able to get that building up and going. They only had a policy that covered $750 to $800 some thousand, while they needed more than $5 million. Living in this country, this is the next thing that we have to look at. We always have to make sure that our policies are up to date. And so because we live in this country, and again, the shuyukh have discussed this, that because we live in this country and we need to have protection for our people that are in here, so if there was any damage, if there was any injuries to people that were covered in this type of accident, so we make sure our policies are reflective in that manner. So if, for instance, something happened to our facility, we need X amount, alhamdulillah, I will check with the brothers and make sure that we have our full insurance that we need here in order for us to redo something if something were to take place. May Allah protect us at all times. That's one insurance. The second type of insurance is home insurance, right? Again, home insurance, now it depends. If you have a loan on the house, no bank is going to give you a loan unless you come with an insurance. Whether the bank is Citibank or it's guidance. It's up to you guys. You have to do your research and see if that's an allowable thing that you want to get into. But if you're in a loan situation, you have to have the insurance as well. So many people that I know have still kept the insurance because they said, brother, if somebody slips on my sidewalk, I'm responsible for it. So again, the shuyukh discussed this. So what do we do? So if the premium is going to be so small, so if you look at the premiums here in the city area, maybe $800 to $1,000, that's something that you can do to take away the harm that's going to bring millions of dollars worth of damages to you possibly, whether somebody comes to your front wall with a car, or somebody falls and hurts themselves, somebody's working there, somebody hurts themselves, somebody's living there, meaning renting it out, and they hurt themselves. At least you have a policy in place. Again, we're living in a country where you need to protect yourself, and of the ways to protect yourself is through the insurance. And the shuyukh have said, because of these reasoning, because of these necessary reasons, this is something that would be allowable. Allahu ta'ala alam. The last one I wanted to discuss was health insurance. Health insurance is huge. Because if you don't have health insurance, if you go to a hospital, they can send you a pretty big bill, right? My son, he's sitting right there, he cut his ear. SubhanAllah, I never thought that this was going to happen. What? Happened. He cut his ear on a table, and we took him to the emergency room. So they called a surgeon in to stitch up the ear. I'm telling you for real, this is not, I wish this never happened, but it happened. So he sewed the ear, and a few months later you get a bill. Can anybody guess how much the bill would be? $2,000, I wish. Oh my goodness, triple that. $18,000 bill for 10 minutes worth of work. I was like, subhanAllah, I need to make sure that all these kids become surgeons, inshallah. Right? $18,000 bill for 10 minutes worth of work. Alhamdulillah, if I didn't have insurance, and I'm telling you, because now, of course, there's a big game with the insurance, right? So this is one of the problems with the insurance and the insurance companies. It's a big game, right? They're basing it on statistics. And they run these statistics on a regular basis to come up with when they know when there's going to be value for them and when they're going to lose that value. So this particular surgeon was out of network. Again, we only did was sign it because they said a surgeon has to do this, and an ER doctor cannot take care of the stitches of a regular a child like that with the ear. They want to make sure everything's you don't just stitch it up anyway and it looks deformed later on. So alhamdulillah, the ear looks normal. $18,000 bill, but alhamdulillah, almost the entire bill was covered by the insurance company, and I had to pay $359 out of pocket. So, I mean, when you have situations like this, if you do not have insurance, and if you are not able to get Medicaid or one of these state-sponsored or other private insurances, even for the short-term period, there's a lot of risk that you're taking on your own. So in order to protect yourself from that risk, in order to make it easy on the people, again, because of the necessity in this area, in this country, because otherwise we can't go. You won't be able to get treated. And if we can't have our Muslim brothers and sisters treated, then what is the purpose? Right? And they want to make sure that the people are taken care of, even though the situation is now stepped out of bounds. It's stepped out of bounds by going through this insurance policy. So you may or you may not use it. You may or you may not use it. But having it when you need it, it's extremely helpful. It's extremely helpful. So again, the shuyukh, they've discussed this matter as well. And they said because the bills and the cost of healthcare in this country is extremely astronomical, one of the ways to keep the cost low and to keep yourself protected to a level, because they have premiums in place, they have co-pays in place because they're set. Because you have some type of stability in that, even though the entire program of the insurance, generally speaking, is not permissible, but because it is something that is working in this bubble, it is allowed for the people that live in this country and to have health insurance. So car insurance is okay because it's required. Health insurance, because there's nothing else allowed. The health insurance is okay because if we didn't get into this, and if you were to get into an accident or you had an issue, you won't be able to get treated. And like I said, home insurance, again, depending on your situation, if you're living there, and if you believe that you're not in a safe area or your house is old, it might be something that I recommended. All right, fourth type of insurance. Now here, I want everybody to answer me all together. Life insurance, what do you think? Halal or haram? Haram, huh? Ah, subhanallah. Life insurance, no, you're gonna leave your spouse just like that? Nothing for her? Nothing for him? No dollars, nothing? What's that? You think it's halal or haram?
I say it is, depending on the situation and the climate, the society that we live in.
Correct.
In order to get for the burial and for things to come, it would be just like taking from the Beta Mar. And since we don't have a Beta Mar that's established, that life insurance will serve as a Beta Mar to subside, to give subsistence to the family. No.
So, it's a depend answer. So you're perfectly right. It can be halal or haram depending on the situation. If we have individuals, families, that are able to cover the cost of funerals, they can cover the cost of taking upkeep of the home and everything for a period of time, then it's something that they have to make a decision on. Generally speaking, I would say that it probably is something that they don't need, because remember, we're talking about these insurance policies that are usually term policies, which basically means there's an expiry period. So what do they do with the cheapest policies they're going to sell to whom? They're going to sell to 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, it'll be a little bit more expensive. 40-year-olds, it'll be a little bit more expensive. 50-year-olds, it'll be a lot more expensive. 60-year-olds, forget about it, right? Now it's, because they know you're getting close to that end. That clock's running out, whether you like it or not. Insurance companies know. the more you're getting them, that you're getting there in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, they know that clock's not going to go forever. And so you are more likely to expire. So then, you're going to be dead soon. So those are going to raise the premiums. So they're going to be like, there's a huge risk that we're going to take. But the guy who's 20 years old, the sister who's 20 years old, there's less risk for them, but they have tables. So out of 1,000 men, 1,000 women that don't smoke, that do this, that they have this kind of life, they have these actuary tables. They figure out exactly to the decimal place now, because they have so much data. And so with all this data, they can figure out. So I was saying before, insurance policies, generally speaking, they're doing something that's going to benefit them, that they're going to profit from. That is the general goal, the general objective of an insurance company is to make money for its investors. Right? That's what it is. People put money into it, they want to make money out of it. So if they're not getting money out of it, if they have to pay all that out, that's it. The insurance company goes under. They're done. So then when they do these actuary tables, they know what they're doing, and they know what they're going to give, and they know what they're going to get out of it. So that was a long-winded answer, but if you have reserves, meaning you have cash reserves, you have extra money in place, then insurance policy is something that you probably don't need. But now let's go the other route. A lot of people in this country have a lot of debts. They have a lot of debts. So if you are the person who's indebted, you're a person who has extreme debts, you may be forgiven by such and such company. Allahu A'lam, what if Allah holds it against us? What if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we've got into these debts and we haven't paid them off? So you want to make sure that you pay these debts off. One of the ways you can do is make sure that some of these debts don't pass on to the wife and the children. Like, for example, mortgage. If you don't pay the mortgage, what happens to the wife and children? Out. So you're going to have to make sure that you have covered them for the debts that you have encountered. So just a long answer, like I said before, there's no short answer, and there are very few right answers living in this country, because when that time comes, it's extremely difficult for that person in that situation. And when we're asking our community to get together and put together a Zakatul Mal fund, putting together our wealth, taking a little portion of our wealth and contributing for the people that, contributing for the people that need it, our people don't show up all the time. So Allahu A'lam. So all these four insurances, like I said, health insurance, because we don't have a lot of other, if you're generally healthy, you can take a chance, inshallah. Car insurance, you cannot drive car without car insurance, you must get it. Home insurance, up to you. And life insurance, like I said, if you can stay away from it, that is the best. If you are unable to stay away from it, then inshallah, make sure that you discuss it with the shuyukh, the imams of the masajid, and your community members and your brothers and sisters, and see what everybody else is trying to do and what would be helpful and what is beneficial, and what is not beneficial, let's stay away from it, inshallah. Any questions on insurance? Yes, my brother. We'll get your mic, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum
Wa
warahmatullah.
alaikum
As I understood, the issues are related to, we have three types of needs. One is Jaruriya, then Haziyat, then Tahassiniyat. So you are, if we are in a situation of Jaruriya, then you are saying that we can just go into all those things. When in case of Jaruri necessity, we can, in some areas, we can go for some limited haram things. This is like this.
So yes,
Yes,
and
but-
no. Yes and no, meaning car insurance is a requirement.
Yes.
So this is something,
But-
now
but-
it becomes a necessity.
My question is,
Yes.
as people, our shuyukhs, our imams and our scholars, as we are a growing community, Muslim community in United States, some people here we are by chance, some by choice. And we have chosen this society, and there is a established system which is based on, as you have mentioned about insurance, this is based on Garar, Maisir, and something, and Riba. All the three elements are there.
Yeah.
So, if we give our fatwa like this, that yes, to a limited extent we can accept it. This is a general fatwa. But is it not our responsibility to ponder on the issue so that we can come out of this Garar, Maisir, and Riba? System of insurance, system of banking. This is a growing system all over the world now.
Yeah.
So also in America, we cannot the Muslim community think of developing insurance like as Islamic insurance is developed on the basis of solidarity.
Yeah.
So something that we can at the same time we are allowing some to do some at a limited space, but on the other side we try to develop a system which will be halal for us, and we can get rid of those limited haram things.
Inshallah.
Oh, thank you.
So your question about how do we face this and how do we get rid of this, because it's, so insurances, as I've just discussed, has a major component of is riba, and that is correct, because it is invested in other types of investments and other products that provided income. And that income usually is based off of interest, because most of these insurance companies are either affiliated with banks or some other source of income coming in, or whatever investments that they have with other mutual funds or brokerage companies, and they definitely have a riba component to it. I didn't discuss that portion of it. I just discussed it from a perspective of a person that is going through a regular daily living, and what they're faced with and what they may have to look into. So for example, if you are going to get car insurance, you may be able to get away with having some type of car insurance in place for maybe $1,000, $1,200 a year, right? So the cost is extremely small to be able to avoid. Now, trying to battle this is a whole different concept. This is what we were talking about if we want to try to get the Islamic word out. And one of the main things that we need to concentrate on at all times, it's not about the finance aspect of Islam, it's about the Iman aspect of Islam. Because when your Iman is extremely high, you can probably do away with any of these things and you don't need any of these things, right? Because we have other parts of the world where there are villages, and those villages, those people are living. And they're living constantly and they're living consistently, right? And they have cars and they don't have car insurance, right? And they have homes and they don't have home insurance. And they have lives and they don't have life insurance. So you're right, there is another aspect of the world where it does work. Because if something were to happen in those small knit communities, small villages, others around that community may come and help them and assist them in order to rebuild their house, in order to have them get their car back again in shape. Or if not, then they know that they're in a situation where they're going to have to start rebuilding. And so they are in a different process and they're a different form of life. Here in the United States, they have a process in place as well. So we're following the laws. Now, if you're thinking about changing the laws and changing the concepts, changing the insurance companies and what they're doing, this is a much bigger concept, and that has to be a grassroots effort. And this is what I was talking about last week. If we can start something from the ground up and start looking for our brothers, and there was young brothers sitting here last week that they looked like they were extremely interested in getting into the politics field, or at least being able to address to politicians, hey, let's support this person or that person because they're favor of Muslims. They're trying to help us out because they know that there's a lot of negative rhetoric, and we've gone through a lot of situations with different groups, and different groups have been saying different things about us. So if that's something that we want to do, that's okay. And I told you last week as well that I was reading a book about Ralph Nader breaking through power, and alhamdulillah I was able to finish it this week. He gives you a recipe of how to go about dealing with these powers. And he gives examples of how 1 or 2 or 3 people together, forming communities and forming bonds across communities, neighbors, and then all across the country as well as all over the world. Some groups have more than 180, 190 countries involved in an effort. And I'll give you some examples of those efforts. So he was saying that certain groups, certain individuals, certain companies, certain corporations, They really didn't take care about pollution. And even when the presidency came in, when Clinton came in, he really didn't take care of the country, and he didn't really address emission issues. So rather than taking care of emission issues and coming up with climate experts and saying, hey, this is what's harming our environment and harming our climate, he said that he gave the Clinton and his administration, and as well as whoever was in Congress and Senate at that point, they gave $1 billion to Ford and other car companies to invest in research, and nothing ever came about it. Nothing ever came out of it. And this is taxpayer dollars. This is something that we are constantly, you're receiving money, you're getting income, and you're always paying tax, and they take your tax dollars and they're investing in wrong places, and they're using it in the wrong manner. So his grassroots effort is simple, and I'll tell you what he does. And you tell me what you think of this. He says, you get 1,000 people together. You get 1,000 people together, right? Each of those 1,000 people, they have to dedicate only 300 hours of volunteer work through the entire year, right? There's a lot of hours in a week, right? How many hours in a week? How many? 24 times 7. Too tired, brother. It's about 168. 168? 168, you sure? I want to say it on the broadcast. I don't want to be wrong. 168, right? 168 hours a week. So 300, just think about it. It's a few hours a week. I come here for a Monday night boost once a month. It's 12 hours a year, right? So you just think about it, this little bit. He said you get these people, 1,000 people together. He goes, if you try to do it with 2, 3, 4, 6 people, it's not going to work because that grassroots effort starts to die. You need a buy-in from a community. You want some change, usually that person who affects that change is someone who's gone through something. A person who has extreme difficulty finding a job, he's the one who's going to put a list together of all these different places that you can get jobs. A person who had a hard time getting an education, he's going to put together a list of all the places that you can get an education pretty cheaply. Right? You don't want to spend $50,000, $100,000 a year just to get an education that may just get you in debt, and that's it, and doesn't really get you much after that. Right? So you need that person or 2 or 3 that starts it, but then you need that effort, and that every person in that group is going to make sure that they're donating at least 300. Right? Volunteer work, 300 hours a year. A year. That comes out to like 2 or 3 hours a week possibly, not even. Or maybe a little bit more, 5 hours a week, let's say, 6 hours a week, whatever it comes out to. 50 weeks, 6 hours a week is all it comes to. And that's nothing if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things. So 6 hours a week. Then he's asking for funding. So these same 1,000 people, you have a funding requirement, but it's extremely small. You know how much he wants? He says, not he wants, but your group should have $200 per person for the entire year. That's it. Do the math, 200 times 1,000. 200,000. 200,000, you get 3 or 4 full salaried people, and they can help you take care of any situation that you have in hand. We can do that here in this masjid right now. We don't need 1,000 people in this masjid to help us. If we just had 100 people, and each of us even only gave $10 or $100, somewhere very small, we can hire some staff that's full-time, taking care of as many needs of the masjid as possible. But it has to be people-based. They say that the Constitution was, we the people. The people first, everybody else comes underneath. The problem is right now, everybody has come above, and the people have come underneath. That's the problem. And so when I read this book, when I was introduced to this book, I was never a big fan of Ralph Nader and politics and whatever, but I read this book, and I'm learning so much from it. And he tells you step-by-step instruction. If you want this book, it's called Breaking Through Power by Ralph Nader. Read this book. I'm telling you, it's a very small book. It's like 150 pages. Extreme easy read. Gives you a lot of positives in there on how to affect positive change within society. And in living in the United States, you need a person who's experienced in this society. He's telling you that you can go and contact these people, and you can get the attention that you need from these people. And if you want to go to your council people, there's a way. There's a form letter. Here's the words that you use. Tell them that I want to meet with you. Our group wants to meet with you for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Any open public area. You have a lot of recesses in between Congress sessions anyways, so please meet with us. And these are our demands. And these are the things that we want to work on. Subhanallah. How does that sound to you? Anything halal or haram in there? Anything haram in there? No haram, right? Nothing haram in there, right? Nothing. It's ideas. And this is the problem. One of the other problems we have is we don't read enough either, right? We definitely don't read enough. What do we normally do? YouTube, right? We want to watch a video. Just hit the video, listen to the video, watch the video. The more crazy it is, the more humorous it is, the more we enjoy it, right? This is what we've gone off to. And so you think about it, how many million people live in the US? Almost 330 million people in the United States. There's 500 and some odd people in Congress, and another few hundred people in Senate. And there's a president, a vice president, and the cabinet. What are we waiting for? There's so few people that they run the country, but the thing is we don't push enough. We don't go there, and we definitely don't ask them to do the things that we want them to do for us. We can have them do more security. It's just a demand. You just have to constantly go and constantly ask for this. If you have a list of demands that you have right now, so if we wanted to separate the masjid, right, from the school, and from the school area, from the gym area, we can get so much funding for schooling. We can get so much funding for the gym area, for activities and stuff. It's just a matter of using your brain, understanding the system, and not connecting every single thing together because it causes problems for us. These corporations, they pay the few amount of taxes. You know why? Because these are greedy people. They treat corporations like people. The few thousand corporations that we have in this country, they're treated like human beings. They're their own entity. And if you're going to treat a corporation like it has a heart, and it has a mind, and it has desires, and it has wants, and it has needs, and it has this need to succeed, and this need to constantly stay there and constantly be in position to always be, profiting, then there's a problem here. And we need to address this issue. And the way you do it is through grassroots efforts. Any questions? Any questions on this point?
So do you think the idea that you just mentioned is a fard kifaya for us?
Absolutely. We need people who are going to lead an effort. We need to come up with the same group like this. We can do this in a Monday night boost session with me, inshallah, as well, or Zakaria, or all of us together, inshallah. What are the things that we need in our community? What are the things that the New York City community needs? What are the things that Muslim communities need, other communities need? We need education for our children, right? We want to make sure that the property taxes, that the taxes that we're paying for our properties, that they're being used for our communities and they're for the betterment of our children, for the betterment of our society. That we're making sure that the people who are in charge of our security, the police officers, the firemen, and others, like city employees of hospitals and city employees of universities, that they're basically constantly taking care of our community. Yes.
There is a question, why the conventional insurance is haram? Anyway,
Say that again.
why it's haram? Insurance.
Why is
This is a very
insurance-
basic question. Yeah.
Why is insurance haram?
Yeah.
So let me explain to you
Conventional.
let me explain to you the concept of insurance, how it works. Insurance. Has anybody ever heard of? I'm pretty sure if I go to different people, it might be different terms. But have you ever heard of a committee where everybody's putting in an equal amount of money? So, for example, you and us 10 brothers here. 10 brothers here. Each of us puts $100 in a month. 1,000 comes in. So this month I'll take 1,000. Next month you take 1,000. Next, the third brother takes 1,000. That's how the insurance process started. So now when everybody who puts in gets out, that's fair. It's committee system. I don't know what like there. I think somebody else once told me that there's a Sisi or Susu or something like that. It's Susu? Yeah, Susu. In another culture it's called. So like different cultures have different terms for that process where people put in the equal amounts of money and they take it. So you have to contribute $100 a month for 10 straight months until all 10 brothers or 10 sisters have collected their 1,000. Now the insurance process, that's how it started. But now what has happened with the insurance process, when they're pooling their money together, they're saying, if you die, then we'll give you this. Or if an event takes place. If there was damage to the house, then we'll pay it. But if there's no damage, we keep it. And any profit over it, we keep it. That's the process of it. And so when they took that money, they started investing it into other products and securities. Right? So when I say securities, They invested in stocks, they invested in bonds, they invested in CDs, they invested in treasuries, they invested in T-bills. I mean, like, you're talking about anything and everything that they can invest in, they invest in it. They try to keep it more secure investments, like treasuries and bonds and some very high-profile stock companies to make sure that the profits are always there. And then if there's an event, they pay out. If there's no event, they keep it. So that risk of loss that's what makes it haram. Allah Ta'ala. Did that make sense to everybody? That risk of loss? When you lose that money, so when I'm paying in, so for example, they'll come up to you and somebody from New York Life comes to you today and says, we're going to sign up brother, Ahmed here for a $100,000 insurance policy. All you have to do is pay $100 a month for the entire year, but then every year it'll go up by like $5, $10. And then for 20 years, you keep on paying it, and subhanAllah, you don't pass away. You lost 20 years worth of premiums, and then the 21st year, khalas. So you didn't get that benefit. So that chance, it's almost like gambling with your life. It's almost like gambling with your home. It's almost like gambling with your car. It's almost like gambling even with your health. It's a gamble. And so you keep on, and the reason why people keep on saying it, it's better to have it than not to have it, because when I need it, I'll have it. And if I don't have it, and then I'm in trouble, then I'm dead anyways. So I might as well have it. It's like circular logic, and it brings you straight right. You start here, and you end up right back up here, because all of these things are taking place, and people in their minds think that this is extremely important stuff that we need to have. But for thousands of years, we've never had insurance, and the world has worked perfectly fine. For the last 100, 150, 120 years, we've had insurance, and we have more problems in the world than ever. Allah Ta'ala. Any other questions on? Because I had another one here. Somebody had asked they wanted to know more examples of areas when we look at lesser than two evils. So remember, this is when we're talking about two bad things. So I was reading something and somebody had made a comment, or somebody put together and said that making sajda versus you being injured. For example, if you're injured, and if let's say you have an injury here in the arm, and when you go to sajda, you put pressure on your arm, and it starts to bleed, right? So they're saying that in this case, because you have ritual impurity coming from the blood is basically going to be all over the place. It's going to be on your clothes, it's going to be on the ground. So rather than having that you give up the actual physical form of the sajda. Now, step back for a second. Is sajda something evil? No. So you can't, that's not something that you would it's not comparable. It's another principle that would apply to that. And that's a principle of ruqsa. So an ease. Where you have difficulty, so you try to make it easy for the person. It's not a darura. Darura is something that is necessary, right? So salah is necessary, right? Everybody agree salah is necessary? Salah is 100% necessary, right? And we have to pray all the time. We have to pray 5 times a day, every day. But if you are injured and you can't make sajda, you don't skip the salah. You skip the formal prostration, and you just do it with gestures, inshallah. So you just, so you're not putting any pressure on the arm that's bleeding or whatever issue that you have. It's not a lesser of two evil, but I just wanted to point that out because I was reading something and somebody had pointed that example out. I do want to point out this one. An old and ill person, he's incapable of reciting in prayer while he's standing, right? So a person who has gained age, he's ill, he's aging, and he's not able to stand, but he's able to do so in a seating position. So the ruling in this case should be what? Sit down, right? Sit down? Yeah, absolutely. So the ruling in this situation is that he sits down and he offers in salah and makes the recitation while he's sitting down, because salah is required, and he makes the salah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again gives ruqsa. There's a need to make salah. That's necessary, but there's no evil in here, so again it is something that has a ruqsa in it. Now let me ask you this. If one is forced to eat dead meat by necessity, or to eat the wealth of an orphan. So either you have two options. The only two options you have is there's an orphan sitting there in that house, and he's got some wealth. And then the only other option you have is on this place, there's a dead animal. Which one would you eat? Would you take the wealth from the orphan and eat from, once you take the wealth, you go and you buy something and you eat something there? Or do you eat the dead animal? Yes. Dead animal, why? Why would you eat the dead animal, not take some money from the orphan and borrow it from him or her?
Because it's not cooked.
It's not?
It's not cooked well. It's not cooked.
It's not cool.
It's not cooked.
It's not good.
It's not cooked well.
Oh, it's not cooked well.
Yeah.
What's not cooked? The dead meat?
No.
No, the orphan doesn't have meat. The orphan just has wealth, has some money or something. You're still not going to take the wealth. So the scholars of Islam here have said that the orphan's money, orphan's wealth, taking from that person, taking from the orphan, and we're thinking of him as a child, you can't take the orphan's wealth. It's a major sin to steal from the orphan. It is better that you take a little portion of that dead meat and to basically survive rather than stealing from an orphan. What about this? The only thing that is available to you is a cup of wine. Cup of wine, there's no water in place, there's nothing in sight, but there's a cup of wine that has become available to you. There's nothing else available to you. Can you drink that cup of wine to stay alive? Yes. Yes? Who else says yes? Yes? So, I didn't know this, and when I researched this, and I was like, subhanAllah, apparently, alcohol and wine, we probably don't know, it doesn't quench your thirst. If anything, it probably makes you more thirsty. It probably gives you more problems later on. So because this incident took place at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, where the wine was brought forth, and the person said to the Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam that it's just, I'm just going to use it as a medication. And at that point in time, it was told to him that the wine is an illness. It's an illness. Stay away from the illness even if you're thirsty. Because all it will do is make you more ill. It will make you ill. It will make you somewhat, out of your senses, even if you just drank a little bit. This is something that you want to try to stay away from at that point in time. Allah Ta'ala. Yes. No. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we're going to try to help you as well. Inshallah, we've been in the process because of the construction that's taking place right now. We are supposed to be working on a ramp, inshallah. So the question or the comment was related to a person who's in a wheelchair, bringing him here for either the salawat or for Jummah prayer. And because we don't have access up the stairs right now, this is something that's been in the works for a little while. We have certain approvals in place, but we don't have enough funding to take care of the buildings there as well as the ramp at the same time. So as soon as we have both of the approvals, then the funding and everything available, inshallah, there will be a ramp that will take us either from this point or from this point inside of into the masjid for anybody who has any type of handicap So if they needed to bring in a wheelchair, inshallah, we'll have wheelchair accessible ramp and a wheelchair accessible area because, of course, the wheels are going to have dirt on it, so we can't have them going all over the carpet, inshallah. But we'll have an accessible area as well. And inshallah, it's something that I know the masjid has been working on it for a little while, but there's a lot of moving parts right now. So from approvals to funding to actually building out, it's going to take a little time. But inshallah, until then, if we can help the brother in any way, in Jummah time, inshallah, we have no problem because we have, mashallah, over close to 1,000 brothers and sisters, so we can always bring them up here, inshallah, and take them down as well. But other times it might be a little bit of an issue. But with everybody's dua and everybody's efforts, inshallah, we can definitely address that issue. We'll ask any other final questions or comments that anybody has, and inshallah, then we'll break for prayer. So everybody understands the lesser of two evils? Yes? What do you understand? So again, lesser of two evils is not a common situation, right? Remember I said last week as we ended, if you have two evils, it's two evils. So if you constantly are trying to select between two evils, that is always going to bring you to a bad solution at the end of it. Say it again. Lesser evil, yes. You're always trying to, if you have two situations where they're both poor, bad situations, you choose the one that is lesser, meaning of the two evils. So the greater evil, the greater harm, you leave behind, and the other one you choose to bring about and bring some change, and it's just for that period of time. And it's only for that period of time, inshallah. So you cannot extend it beyond that period. Okay? Any other questions? Any other question? It doesn't have to be related to lesser of two evil, anything that's bothering you. Yes, sister? So, so the question is for expiation of sins or assistance, can they fast for that particular reason? Allah Ta'ala alam, the first thing that you should do with related to shortcomings, a person's shortcomings, the first thing that we should always try to do is turn to Allah. And you should always ask for forgiveness. And then you should always try to come His way, and constantly come closer to Him. So of the ways that you can come closer to Him is more salawat. And of the ways you can come closer to Him is through the fast. So, but one of the things that I would warn against is if and then situation, like a nadr, where you make an oath and then you're going to, if this such and such, Ya Allah, you do for me, then I'm going to do this. That's something that I would stay away from. And the scholars of Islam have said to stay away from those types of oaths. What you should try to do is, if there's certain things that you want in your life, and that you want, and you really want something, for example, it can be anything. You want, it can be something objective, meaning like you want a car of some sort, or you want a job of some sort. And majority of the people, when I say istikhara, they always think about marriage, right? So istikhara, salatul istikhara, is extremely important when you're looking for something, requesting something. But from an expiation of sins, tawbah, constant dua to Allah, and constantly trying to do good, and making sure, number one, whatever that shortcoming is, that you stay away from that shortcoming goes away, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala alam. No. That I would always... No. So one of my friends did this to me one time in the chat group, right? So every time we would mention somebody, and so he mentioned, I think he's the one who mentioned, I didn't, and he mentioned the rapper, and then he says, may Allah guide him. And I was like, what's wrong? Why are you asking Allah to guide this person? He's like, how do you know? And I was right. When he asked me, how do I know? I don't know. Like, we don't know. So we should always ask Allah to guide, not only the non-Muslims that are out there, our own family, number one. Ya Allah, it's one of the common du'as that we should be asking, Ya Allah, bless us and bless our children, bless us with wealth, bless us with good, keep us away from harm, and then when situations, like even when you're selecting a spouse for your child, for say, you make dua, the istikhara dua, that whole dua in there is about, Ya Allah, if this is good for me, my deen, my religion, my dunya, my akhirah, and it's good for us, then allow it to take place. If it's evil for me, my deen, my dunya, my akhirah, keep me away from it. So anything for your children, if you see that they're doing something wrong, make dua for them. Also try to, hey, just take them, by the hand and take them to the side. And don't admonish them in front of everybody. Just have an outing between you and your son, or you and daughter, and have that outing with them, and just talk to them separately and talk about that issue, and see, or talk about other things and bring that issue in casually and see if that can be addressed, inshallah. Allah ta'ala alam. Yes, final question.
What if you're looking for the lesser of two evils, but you think like they're both the same about of evilness?
So the question is very, mashallah, very, very bright question. He said, what if you have lesser of two evils, but they're not really that much less from each other and they're about the same? Inshallah, you pick the one that looks the best for the situation, but make dua to Allah that Allah allows you to pick the lesser of the two. And first of dua should be, Ya Allah, protect us from all types of evils. So that way we never have to select between two evils. But, Ya Allah, if you were to put us in a situation where we have to choose from the lesser of two evils, Ya Allah, allow us to choose the right way, right path, allow us to be in guidance of you, and allow us to follow you and the Sunnah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's how you make dua. You always constantly try to make dua and try closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallah wa hamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah